The news came out yesterday that wide receiver of the San Francisco 49ers, Brandon Aiyuk, requested a trade from the 49ers, sources say. Now, sources tell ESPN Adam Schefter on Tuesday that other teams that had reached out to the 49ers that had been told to the team has no intentions of trading him. Now, Brandon Aiyuk's request comes a week before the veterans are slated to report to Niners training camp, and about 3 weeks after Aiyuk and the Niners met in Santa Clara to discuss the situation. NFL Network first reported the trade request. Now, with 1 year remaining on his rookie contract, Brandon Aiyuk is seeking a big money extension and a line of those of wideouts that have earned their deals this offseason, with the Eagles' A.J. Brown and the Lions' Armand St. Brown, Devontae Smith, and Miami Dolphins' Jalen Waddle. Now, the highest when it comes to current wide receiver contracts, you got Justin Jefferson with $35 million a year, A.J. Brown with $32 million a year, Armand St. Brown with Detroit, $30 million a year, Tyreek Hill, $30 million a year, Jalen Waddle, $28 million a year, Devontae Adams, $28 million a year, Cooper Kupp at $26 million a year, Devontae Smith at $25 million a year, and Nico Collins at $24.5 million this year. Now, Brandon Aiyuk is set to make $14.12 million in 2024, and it'll be the fifth and final year of his rookie contract. Now, various points in this offense, Aiyuk has tried to apply pressure to the 49ers to get a deal done sooner than usual in the late summer timeline. But here's the social media voice of a displeasure, even posted a TikTok video of himself and former Arizona State teammate, current Washington Commanders quarterback Jaden Daniels on FaceTime that the Niners don't want him back. But Brandon Aiyuk has stopped the sort of requesting the trade until Tuesday. Now, the league source did tell ESPN Jeremy Fowler that Aiyuk wants to be traded or paid. San Francisco doesn't want to pay him relatively to the market value or trade him. Now, despite despite the request of San Francisco position on Aiyuk has not changed. The Niners have maintained a long that they know that they want to pay Aiyuk and keep him around for a long term. But that has been made more difficult by the rising cost of receivers based on other deals that have been signed in this offseason. Now, Aiyuk's trade request also doesn't guarantee that he will be dealt. In fact, the Niners have recently precedented declining to grant the trade request to a receiver wanting big money deal and eventually signing him. Just for a prime example, with Niners wideout Deebo Samuel Sr. when he requested a trade back in 2022, in the offense, although the Niners listened to the offers of that year in the NFL draft, they held on to Deebo Samuel and signed him through a 3-year worth of $73.5 million in 2022 on July 31st. The former kicker Robbie Gould also requested a trade from the Niners back in April of 2019, but eventually signed a 4-year extension on July 15, 2019. Aiyuk is coming off of a break-off season with 75 catches, 1,342 yards, and 7 touchdowns on his way to a second-team All-Pro nod. Now, if Aiyuk doesn't sign a new deal or get traded before training camp, he expected to avoid participating until his contract situation is resolved. He did not participate in team mandatory camps, incurring fines of $101,000 for missing it. Now, I'm going to be completely honest with this, right? The problem is if you trade for him, you have to pay him big money. The 49ers knew something was going to happen when they drafted 2 wide receivers. People overlook him because Deebo and CMC is getting the attention. It's not even just that. If you look how this roster is built, right? Eventually, Brock Purdy is going to get paid. This is a quarterback-driven league. And I understand those guys want to get I understand that those guys want to get their big money. But Brock Purdy's on a rookie contract. Now, if you go and sign Brandon Aiyuk to this money, where's the money's going to be at for Brock Purdy? Brock Purdy's already been to a Super Bowl. He already took the two NFC championships. Who's more viable here? Brandon Aiyuk or Brock Purdy? And I know CMC and Deebo is those guys, and George Kittle got a big contract. If you look at the money side of things, George Kittle, Debo Samuel, CMC, then you got to pay Brock Purdy. Then you got to keep this defense the way it is. At this point, you just got to find the best fit for him. I know you don't want to trade him, and you don't want to pay him, but the 49ers, you're stuck at a rock and a hard place at this point with Brandon Aiyuk. Because you're saying you don't want to pay him, but you don't want to trade him, but you want him to play under a $14 million guaranteed contract? Knowing that he puts up numbers like a number one receiver? Like, you got to make it make sense, San Francisco. You got to make it make sense. How are you going to extend him and give him the money that he wants? And then when Brock Purdy comes around, then you're stuck. You can't give Brock Purdy the money that he has because you gave that money to Brandon Aiyuk. And I agree with Anthony Price. You have to pay Purdy early before the market goes up for quarterbacks. It's a fact. It's a known fact. You have to do that. There's no way that you sit here and you pay Aiyuk all his money, but you still got Purdy on a rookie contract. It doesn't make sense. It don't make sense at all. But Brandon Aiyuk, if you want to be here and you want to play out your contract and be a free agent next season and then move on instead of requesting a trade. Just do that. That means both of y'all can be wiped out. Both of y'all can go your ways and you can move on. But it's so many places that he can go and play well and get this big money. But I just don't see him being a top 5 paid receiver. I just don't see that. When I know it's 7 to 8 other receivers that's better than him better than him right now. And Dan Orlovsky said that if Brandon Aiyuk is not on this 49ers team, they don't consider them contenders. And you know what? I'm not a big fan of Dan Orlovsky on ESPN. I'm not a big fan, but I have to agree. I have to agree. Because I understand you have 2 young receivers that you got in the draft, which is pretty good. They are pretty good. But at the same time, I just don't see them replacing the numbers of the deep ball of Brandon Aiyuk. If he's going to get his money, he should go to New England or Pittsburgh. Agree. I think he should go to New England. New England would love Brandon Aiyuk. But you got to think about it. It's a young quarterback in Drake May. But if he goes to Pittsburgh with George Pickens and them boys, and then you got Justin Fields and Russell Wilson, now Pittsburgh makes a lot more sense than New England. Because you already have a quarterback situation here. You have a great defense. You have Najee Harris. You got a lot of other teams in this league that can get him. A lot of other teams that could go and get him.